Hey there. Good afternoon to you. How you feeling? Pretty good? 407 now. News Talk 105.9 WMAL. We're making sense of the news. Coming up, Susan Crabtree will be with us at 4:30. She's so good at reporting on all things Secret Service. We will chat with her about how things have changed since Tuesday's big results. Is President-elect Trump getting the protection he needs right now? And Bobby Barack will be with us at 5 o'clock from Outkick. We'll talk about all the winners and losers this week. You can join us, you winners, at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. We, of course, have a border crisis going on. That's one of the reasons President Trump just notched another victory this week, so we can get control of that. But what's going to happen in the intervening time between now and January 20th, when President Trump is sworn in? For that, we turn to the man who's been tracking it very closely, Todd Bensman. He's a senior national security fellow at the Center for Immigration Studies and the author of the book Overrun, How Joe Biden Unleashed the Greatest Border Crisis in U.S. History. Todd, good to have you back with us, sir.
Great to be here. Thank you.
All right, so in the lead up to the election, we were getting some updates from you about how Mexico was sort of stopping up a lot of the flow of humanity that was heading north towards our border. And you and I both suspected that that's because they were trying to do the Biden administration a favor in a very important election time. What's happening now?
Right. That was called Operation Carousel. The Mexicans, since December, have been jamming up lots of migrants, hundreds of thousands in its southern provinces, all the way up into presumably November 5th. And so then what happens after November 5th? Well, we're going to find out whether Claudia Sheinbaum, the new president, is going to keep Operation Carousel or dismantle it in the very near future. For the Trump administration, on the morning of the election, two large caravans set out, strategically timed for the election, from Tapachula, which is where I just came from, and Tuxtla. Altogether, about 5,000. They'll pick up a lot more on the way, 6,000 coming through to test Claudia Sheinbaum's resolve. Is she going to keep them blocked up? If they get through as a vanguard, of course, all those hundreds of thousands behind them will be paying close attention, and they'll come next, of course, because that's how it works. So we were I was kind of predicting a big flood coming through, but I'm revising that as of now, because on Monday, Donald Trump, before the election, at his rally in Raleigh, North Carolina, he threatened Sheinbaum and said, if you let anyone through, when I get to be president, I'm going to slap 25% trade tariffs on everything coming out of Mexico. And if that doesn't work, it goes to 50. And if that doesn't work, it goes to 75%. And if that doesn't work, I'll put 100% tariffs on everything coming into the United States export-wise. Now Sheinbaum's got a problem. Is she going to believe him? Is she going to take heed of that as Operation Carousel? I think it matters that he said that. And just with those words, as a civilian, have struck his first kind of triumph on the border. We'll see. We're going to see very shortly because those caravans are still moving up.
All right, I'm going to play some of this audio. Here's President Trump earlier this week threatening to impose these tariffs on Mexico. Listen to this.
Now we have a new president in Mexico. Supposed a very nice woman. They say I haven't met her. And I'm going to inform her on day one or sooner that if they don't stop this onslaught of criminals and drugs coming into our country, I'm going to immediately impose a 25% tariff on everything they send in to the United States of America. And the reason I delayed that, you're the first ones I've told it to. Congratulations, North Carolina. And it's only got a 100% chance of working, because if that doesn't work, I'll make it 50. And if that doesn't work, I'll make it 75 for the tough guys, and I'll make it 100. Then I'll make it 100.
All right, so there's President Trump saying, look, if you don't get control of this right now, I'm coming in with a day one tariff threat. That's a big deal, Todd Bensman, and very smart of him. So basically, Mexico has something of a loaded weapon, which is all of these people that they could release into our country, and Trump just aimed his own weapon right back at them.
That's exactly right. And we know that Mexico responds to the barrel of that gun in a big way because he has pointed that very gun at them in 2019 when there was a brief but very intense surge of family units coming over the border, the U.S. border from Mexico, and he wanted to get it under control. So he told AMLO at that time, Lopez Obrador, the prior president, listen, I'm going to slap progressive trade tariffs on you all the way up to 28%. Everything that comes through if you don't put military down there and shut it down. And he did. And he did shut it down very significantly. That's where the Biden-Harris administration got their page in their own playbook for Operation Carousel. They took that right out of Trump's playbook. The only difference is that, when Trump promises to do something, it's going to be the whole 4 years, and it's a stick, and it's a heavy stick. We should remember that Mexico is just this year surpassed China as America's biggest trading partner. They are exporting something on the order of $600 billion this year worth of goods, trade goods into the United States. If you want to mess with that, that is a serious national interest to preserve that. For the Mexicans, it's very, very potent. It was potent in 2019 when Trump did it, and it's extremely much more potent even now because the trade between the two countries is far greater. It's at record levels, actually. Mexico's doing very well by it. So she is going to have now. The only thing she said in response, she heard it because on Wednesday she held a press conference in Mexico City. And she acknowledged hearing that and said something to the effect of, nobody's going to push us around from outside. We're a sovereign country. Now, she has to say something like that for Mexican domestic politics. But inside their boardrooms in the palace, Mexico City, I think that the conversation is much different.
Yeah.
We'll see. We'll see very shortly. It's something definitely interesting to watch. Right now, it's Trump pre-election reaching out, and it's Trump president-elect.
Yes.
Actually about to strike his very first blow about the border.
The two of them had a conversation this morning. Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum speaking with President-elect Donald Trump by phone today, and Reuters says that the first telephone call between the leaders was, quote, very cordial. Sheinbaum posted on social media today, X, a photo of herself smiling at her desk. She added that she and Trump spoke about the, quote, good relations that we will have between Mexico and the United States. The post went into no further detail. And so being so slim on details, you have to believe, Todd Bensman, that it was the kind of call that didn't make Mexico happy, or at least President Sheinbaum, but was clearly about getting the border under control.
And one thing we have to, if I have an extra minute here, is that to remember is that when Biden-Harris entered office, they removed the stick from the bilateral table, Trump's threat of tariffs. They removed it and replaced it with carrots. We'll pay you instead, and it'll be soft power. And the Mexicans responded by abusing the Biden administration constantly and repeatedly for the next 4 years. They let everybody through. Millions and millions of people poured through. Now they made a pretense of having the military roadblocks out and all the rest of that, but the Mexicans used something that I call ant operations, where they broke them up into small groups, provided the buses and everything, and distributed these huge populations across 15 different Mexican cities and towns from Baja to Tamaulipas, and had them cross that way in high volumes, but not in a visible way. So they just absolutely abused the Biden administration the entire time with these ant operations, while saying, "Hey, we still have this military roadblock down here. Don't you worry none." And so, I've got another piece coming out shortly, sort of, warning the Trump administration, the incoming Trump administration, to watch out for those ant operations, that they don't do that again, that the numbers stay right where they are and even drop further with Operation Carousel.
If President Trump is able to secure the coerced cooperation of Mexico that he's pushing for right now, what does that mean for the fentanyl crisis and China's ability to continue poisoning Americans?
Well, I know that the fentanyl crisis coincided with the mass migration crisis, but I'm not sure how connected the two actually are, because fentanyl is smuggled in small packages, a lot of it over ports, some of it with human smuggling. But I do believe that Border Patrol will be more available. Agents will be more available because they won't be processing illegal immigrants in. They'll be actually able to hunt down drug traffickers, and that will make a huge difference. They should be able to interdict much more of it.
No, but I agree with you. I hope that's the case. Certainly when the product, if you want to call it that, makes its way to our border. But I mean, even before that, getting the Mexican government to cooperate on not allowing China to control the entire fentanyl trade in their country, to crack down on that. Can President Trump use these same sticks that you and I are talking about, these tariff threats, in order to get some cooperation on cracking down on this illicit and deadly operation?
I think they can. I think they need to direct that at not just the Mexicans, but at the Chinese, the manufacturers of the precursors in not just China, because they've had to move. The Chinese have moved the manufacture of those chemicals to other countries in response to pressure as well. But there's still Chinese nationals that are doing it. And in some of these other countries. So the diplomacy, the stick, can be applied. I mean, the tariff, he uses tariffs. He always did. He's threatened the use of tariffs for all sorts of things. And also another stick that is very important for him to use here will be to threaten visas from those countries that aren't cooperating. All your students that are attending U.S. universities, visas reversed and denied, and business visas and tourist visas and everything else denied until you get this under control in your country. The Biden administration has never wanted to venture into that sort of aggressive, testosterone-y, diplomacy. But it's effective.
Of course.
And I think Trump is going to do that.
Yeah. No more rewarding our abusers. That's insanity. Okay. Todd Bensman, thank you from the Center for Immigration Studies. We rely on you for information on what's going on with all of this, and we'll keep doing that. Thank you, Todd. It is great that President Trump won that election. And the idea is, he not only did he win, but he's immediately able to achieve positive change on behalf of the country. Threatens Mexico with tariffs even before he wins and says, if you allow anybody else to come into our country, I'm hitting you with tariffs day one. Mexico now trying to figure out what to do, not releasing that wave of humanity. It's just great. Isn't it great to have somebody who knows what they're doing coming back to the White House? It's a really big deal. Mark is in Alexandria. He's calling in on line 6 now. Mark, good afternoon. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show. Hello, Mark.
Good afternoon, Vince, and all your guests are providing excellent information. The people need to take those thoughts to the representatives to make sure they act upon them. But I'm calling today for a special prosecutor to be appointed to investigate the malfeasance, not only of the January 6th prosecution and judges involved in that, for civil rights violations, but also during the first Trump administration, where the FBI was able to parade into the U.S. District Court in D.C., say, we've got P tapes, we got Russian tapes, and correct me if I'm wrong, folks, only one person was ever prosecuted for that. And Mayorkas, I don't know how many laws he's violated, but if the Republicans don't take this serious, and it's not lawfare, if you violate the law, criminal law, probable cause, you can spend your life savings like you're making trespassers in January 6th do. I don't care if you're a judge, if you're the head of the FBI, or anything. You're not above the law, and this needs to be flushed out, not a vendetta.
Yep.
You can do it meticulously. It takes 1 year, 2 years, or 3 years. Second thing, Vince, I was never one who stated that the election was stolen. 2020, I always said, well, there was fraud. Was there enough to change it? I don't know. But I want to ask all of the people who fought Trump, all of the judges, all the congressmen, all the congresswomen, where did 14 million votes go? If you look at the statistics from the popular vote, Obama, Clinton, Trump, now Biden, 14 million. No, there weren't 14 million voters that went away. 14 million votes went away.
Well, here's it. Hey, Mark, two things. One, you're right. Only one person of any meaning was prosecuted. Nobody knew his name. It was Kevin Kleinsmith, and in the end, he got away with it. It was just a slap on the wrist. He was literally altering documents in order to get spy warrants on American citizens. And then the other piece, what you're talking about, the vote totals. I want to have this conversation, but we have to have it more clearly after all the votes are tallied. Even California is still counting votes right now. And when the final numbers settle in, that's a perfect conversation to have. What happened between 2020 and 2024? We got to wait till all those votes are actually counted up, and then we can have that conversation. Thank you, Mark. Stay with us. Ahead, Susan Crabtree talks to us about the United States Secret Service and its posture now. What are they doing to protect President-elect Donald Trump? Hey, good afternoon to you. It's 4:35 here at News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. Coming up, Bobby Burak will join us at 5 o'clock. He's a columnist over at Outkick. And you can join us at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. There have been so many amazing reactions to President Trump's victory this week. Here's one that had me howling. This guy, he says he can't believe Trump won, and all of a sudden he's worried about all these deportations. Take a listen.
Donald Trump won, and I am very, very afraid that he might deport my mother-in-law. She entered illegally to the country, and she lives in Street 4, number 47, apartment D, New York. I am very, very concerned. That's right behind the green apartment. Yeah. I have nothing bad happened to her. The gate is always open. You don't have any dogs either. Street 4, number 47, apartment D.
He's going to deport my mother-in-law. He gives the street address and says the gate is always open and she doesn't own any dogs. Oh, what a world. What a fantastic world. The internet remains undefeated. Thank you for that. Okay. Meanwhile, let's talk about something very serious, which is President Trump's life. There have been two well-documented attempts on his life this year while he was running for president. And now what? Now that he's president-elect, what does that look like? Susan Crabtree is a reporter, Real Clear Politics, White House and national political correspondent, and she joins us now. Susan, great to have you with us.
Thanks so much for having me back. Appreciate it.
Okay, so we have a president-elect now. We were told ahead of the election that President Trump had protection that was comparable to what Joe Biden has. What, if anything, changes now?
Well, there's certain things that he gets automatically that president, now that he's president-elect, including the White House Communications Agency works for him now too. And people don't really understand this little agency, but it is a combination of where it's located is in the old executive office building, but it's DoD staffed. So it's the military providing encrypted messaging for anything that Trump does. And that's incredibly important right now because we had that China incident hacking into the phones of both J.D. Vance and Donald Trump and several of his other politicians. There's up to 40 politicians that were victims of that hacking, including Kamala Harris and Chuck Schumer and some others. But I'm told that it's actually more lopsided on the Republican side. And so they were having any discussions, even if their phones weren't having a phone call, could be heard. And J.D. Vance was talking, did discuss how sometimes discussions with his wife could be picked up by the Chinese, as there was no privacy.
Wow.
So anyway, they do get the encrypted. That story has gone under the radar, by the way. That
Yes.
needs to be explored.
I wasn't aware of that detail. I mean, I try and follow as much as I can really closely, but I wasn't aware that their devices were engaged in active listening without them even being on them.
Yeah, I did have a key source brief me on this, and I did tweet about it. I didn't have time to do a full dive, but Josh Rogan did a really good story in the Washington Post about it, and it's just lawful access. It's actually what I was told was that it was the issue is the FISA surveillance system. So it's really not the telecom's fault. The Biden administration has been blaming the telecoms and saying, oh, they hacked into Verizon and other telecoms. But what I'm told, it was our backdoor that the U.S. government has to those systems, but they're supposed to be FISA court-ordered for foreign surveillance. But that's not what's happening. And the
Wait.
really deep concern, yeah, go ahead.
Just to make sure I understand this, the Chinese hacked into our government's surveillance system in order to surveil the incoming president and vice president of the United States?
Absolutely, they did. That's what I'm told. And if you look at Josh Rogan's story, he documents it. And it's called lawful access. That's the term. So they can, not only there's deep concern, they don't know, the White House hasn't been forthcoming on this. And actually, we don't know if the Chinese can see who we're surveilling, that the government did get court-ordered surveillance FISA approval to do, but they don't know what our enemies that we're trying to watch and spy overseas or operating within the country, but they're foreigners. We don't know if they have access to that information or not. And I don't know if the U.S. government doesn't know, but they certainly haven't disclosed that to the American people. And that's the real deep concern. And you can see that Mark Warner, he's the head of the Democratic head of the Senate Intelligence Committee, has called it the worst hacking incident during his tenure as chairman on the Intelligence Committee. And Marco Rubio has been very tight-lipped about it, but he was also asked about it. And he also agreed with Mark Warner. But they're keeping the lid on this, but the Trump administration saying, before the campaign ended, they had said that the Biden administration is not being forthcoming on this. And it's an incredibly important story. And if they can't protect our national security, hopefully when Trump gets in there, but they haven't stopped this. They haven't been able to patch it. They keep trying to patch this, and the Chinese hackers are still doing it. They're still breaking through. So it's an unresolved problem. I hope to be able to report on it more next week. But yeah, it's something I'm trying to drill down on
Yes.
because it's a deep concern.
But Josh Rogan's reporting, I'm reading from it now. The Chinese hackers who the United States believes are linked to Beijing's Ministry of State Security have burrowed inside the private wiretapping and surveillance system that American telecom companies built for the exclusive use of U.S. federal law enforcement agencies. And the U.S. government believes they likely continue to have access to the system. Millions of mobile phone users on the networks of at least 3 major U.S. carriers could thus be ongoingly vulnerable to Chinese government surveillance. And this, of course, as you point out, comes at a really pivotal time. We've got an incoming administration, a lot of important conversations about policy, how that's going to be set up, personnel, who's going to get the jobs. These are some of the nation's most critical secrets, and here they are being exposed to Chinese espionage using U.S. government surveillance systems.
That's right. And that's why it's so important. That's why I'm emphasizing that now Trump and Vance will have the protection of the White House Communications Agency. So all of his texts, all of his phone calls, video conferencing will be protected from anywhere he is. So this agency, working with the Secret Service, has capability to, if he's on an airplane, wherever he is, he has this technology provided to him.
Yeah, but one of the other pieces though is like there's a lot of people around Trump who are not government officials. They're industry people, they're media people, and President Trump likes having robust conversations with people from all walks of life. He welcomes them to Mar-a-Lago. They have cell phones in their pockets. This creates a real chaotic situation for an incoming administration.
Absolutely. I do think that it is a deep concern. And I would definitely, when I was talking to the people briefing me about it, I had to use a certain type of technology to talk to them.
Sure.
So they are taking precautions. But I don't know if the Biden administration they are not being forthcoming about those. And I'm told it's not really the telecom's fault, that it was the Biden administration's, the U.S. government's, and it falls within the Justice Department's ability to protect this back door that they have access to. So that I want to drill down on, but it is of serious concern. And anybody in the country, I mean, who knows now, since I've posted about it on X.com, whether they could, in fact, they could be surveilling our phone calls too, my phone calls. And they did this with the Wall Street Journal reporter, the Chinese. The Wall Street Journal reporter's email was hacked. That's all we've known so far. We don't know if the reporter's phone was also accessed as well.
Wow. All right. Well, before everybody goes to bed tonight, scream an obscenity at China's Communist Party into your phone and see if they get the message. Hey, on protecting Trump,
yes.
One of the upsides I would think is now that he's not in campaign mode, he's not going to be quite on the move. It won't be in all these various unusual venues. Does that enhance the ability of the Secret Service to protect him?
Yes, and I'm told actually, that Ron Rowe, the acting director of the Secret Service, who has testified and he's been under a microscope since these assassination attempts and Kimberly Cheadle's departure, he wasn't being quite honest when he kept saying he has the full package, that Donald Trump has the full package after the assassination attempts of any equivalent to what President Biden have or any president has. I'm told now he does in terms of not the Air Force One. They still don't have a military plane, even though they could have provided him one, according to several sources in the Secret Service community told me about different plane options that have the same jamming technologies that Air Force One does. But he does have more agents around him, and they're more experienced agents. So I'm told he has his regular Trump detail, and then and a campaign shift that they have that during the campaign they added. But they were only added, the additional campaign shift was only added for all outdoor sites, and these now they're full time. So he has more agents around him, and he has all the assets available to him that President Biden would have. He has many more sweeps, and they also will be providing. I'm told there's some discrepancy in this. It used to be that president-elects don't have the airspace that's shut down around them. Vice presidents have a limited amount of airspace shut down around them. It's called a bubble in Secret Service terminology, I'm told. From what I understand, they did start providing, from your excellent question last time we talked, I looked into it, they did start providing air traffic was shut down around Trump. I don't know if it was that bubble that they provide for the vice president where, and they don't have I don't think they had the Harrier jet aircraft that presidents get to go investigate any airplane that would come into the restricted airspace. I don't think he had that, but it's a bubble that they shut down around Donald Trump, and they had been doing that
Yes.
for during the campaign. They had been taking that precaution, and as you know, it could have been in response to these Iranian threats of missile attacks.
Right. Yeah. So the threats from the air, it seems like there's a lot of potential threats from the air, whether it's a missile attack or it's an actual plane getting within the vicinity of the president, or it's drones. The drone technology today seems to be one of the big areas that everyone who's concerned about security, that's the word I keep hearing pop up. Drones. Do you think, is he in a position where he can be protected from that?
They have their drone mitigation systems in place. Secret Service, the drone mitigation that was in failure, and the agent was on the phone with technology for hours a day. That's why they couldn't get it up until really late in the day. They couldn't get their mitigation system. They have a very excellent drone mitigation system. I'm hoping that it can respond to these fleets of drones that we have been reported. The Wall Street Journal reported that they suspect it's Chinese driven too. They had arrested a Chinese individual and involved in some of those drones that were appearing down in Richmond area, down in the Navy area that my husband used to work in Virginia, and they also had some of these at other Air Force bases across the country and over Langley as well. I don't know if you've read that Wall Street Journal article, but it is pretty frightening. I am told that that's the deepest concern among the Secret Service agents that are in the drone program. And now we know Ron Rowe created a division just for drones. Some people like that in the Secret Service, others don't. But he did do that, and they are training a lot more drone pilots right now. People to control the drones. They've been actively doing that since this has become an issue after the assassination attempt. So they are definitely upping their game when it comes to this. Whether they can manage these fleets of drones is an open question.
Yeah. You ever see those birds that they train to intercept drones? You ever see that? They like hawks and things. That's what we need. We need a fleet of bald eagles that are dedicated to protecting Donald Trump. That'd be great.
That would be so. That would be a great metaphor for this result of the election. But I love that imagery.
I love it. All right, hey, Susan Crabtree, I love your reporting. Thank you very much, and I really appreciate your time as always. Line 3, William is calling in from Fairfax now. William, good afternoon. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
How are you?
I'm good, William. What's on your mind?
Yeah, you were talking about Chinese have the ability, continuing ability to hack into the private systems designed for the U.S. federal government to spy on Americans.
Yep.
Hey, shut it down. Problem solved.
Yes, exactly right. Shut down the technology, shut down the back doors, make it so that nobody can use them because the Chinese are using them right now, and the government shouldn't be spying on American citizens anyway.
Right. They're trying to patch it to keep it alive. Shut it down. If they're so important, let them restart from scratch.
Yeah. They're not, and they're not even bothering. That's not. Have you noticed that's not on the table? Nobody's even mentioned that particular thing except for you, William. They're just letting it go. Yeah. No, that is the right way to handle this. Thank you, William. Yeah, smart. I was thinking this as Susan was describing, and I was like, well, wait a second. Why don't we just shut that whole thing down? William's totally right about that. But Vince, we'll be so unsafe. We won't be able to spy on Americans to find out what they're doing. How about not spying on Americans? How about that? And that goes for you too, Republicans, the idiots among you who continue to vote to allow spying on American citizens. Stop it. Stop it. I hope President Trump can change all that too when he gets to Washington. Stay with us. Bobby Burak will join us next. We'll talk about winners and losers this week, and it's not just Donald Trump and Kamala Harris.